There once was a web novel, a story that, seemingly, no one in the world read. Its title was 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, and its sole reader couldn't understand why it was so unpopular. It's a masterpiece, he'd think to himself. Over its long run, it had amassed a staggering 3,149 episodes, yet the average view count remained dismally low. On a rattling subway train, an ordinary office worker named Kim Dokja stared at his phone. He was the novel's only loyal follower, and after a decade, he had finally reached the very last episode. But back then, as he was about to read the ending, he had no idea what was coming next. A violent, fiery crash. A scene of pure chaos flashes by, a glimpse into the brutal world of the novel. Monstrous beasts roared, and a lone, powerful warrior named Yu Jong-hyuk stood against them. This was the apocalypse he had only read about. The story picks up on the exact day Kim Dokja finished the web novel. Suddenly, the train screeched violently, shuddering to an abrupt halt. And then, in a flicker of failing lights, a creature of pure fantasy appeared. A small, furry being with glowing golden horns, a dakibi. Panic erupted. The passengers, moments ago lost in their daily commute, were now screaming in terror. While everyone else was lost in fear, a chilling realization dawned on Kim Dokja. As he stared at the creature, he thought, "No way, this is..." Looking down at his phone, still open to the novel, the thought completed itself in his mind. I know how this story goes. The crowd continued to murmur and shrink back in fear, their confused noises a stark contrast to the cold certainty growing within Dokja. It was unbelievable, but it was happening. The story he had been reading alone for the past 10 years had turned into reality. Another flash of the novel's world. The protagonist, Yu Jong-hyuk, looking out over a city ruined by the apocalypse, a silent testament to the world's destruction. The clang of steel on steel echoes, a sound from one of the countless battles fought by the novel's hero. A massive, ground-shattering crash shows the immense power wielded by the figures in this new, terrifying world. In these visions of the future, Yu Jong-hyuk fights relentlessly, his sword a blur of motion against the forces of ruin. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, burn with a cold, focused fury. The eyes of a man who has survived the end of the world time and time again. In a particularly striking scene from a novel, Yu Jong-hyuk crosses blades with an identical adversary, who snarls, "Who the hell are you?" The eyes of his opponent mirror his own, creating a disturbing and deadly reflection. The battle rages on, a chaotic dance of blades as Yu Jong-hyuk elegantly parries and attacks his mysterious doppelganger. He is the ultimate survivor, the hero of the story Kim Dokja knows so intimately. A faint smile plays on Kim Dokja's lips. The chaos is just beginning, but for him, the sole reader, this is not a surprise. It's a story he knows by heart. For 10 years, he was just an excited reader, blushing at the thought of finally reaching the ending. But in an instant, that naive excitement vanished, replaced by a sharp, focused gaze. The reader had to face his story. With a single, final tap, he opened the last chapter of the web novel he had dedicated his life to. And in doing so, the sole reader of this forgotten tale became the only person who knew how the world was going to end. This is the story of that reader, now standing on the precipice of a new world, surrounded by the very characters he had only read about, looking towards a future that only he knows. A phone screen displays the final words of a web novel titled 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. It ends with a hopeful, yet ominous message. If you're reading this, you will survive. A man's hand holds the phone, his thumb hovering over the screen. A pop-up notification confirms that this is the last episode, and he lets out a confused, "Huh?" In disbelief, he repeatedly swipes down, hoping for more content. But there's nothing. Really? Is that it? He thinks, disappointed that the epic story has come to an end. The scene pulls back to reveal the man is an office worker, sitting on a crowded subway. He's still staring at his phone as the train rattles along the tracks. A close-up shows his face, a young man with black hair and a stunned expression, lost in thought about the novel he just finished. As the train continues its journey, he introduces himself in an internal monologue. "I'm Dokja. Dokja, can also mean only child. He reflects on how he introduces himself, and 9 times out of 10, people misunderstand the meaning of his name. His internal conversation continues, imagining their confused follow-up questions. He clarifies that this is his name showing his employee ID. His father gave him that name, hoping he would grow up to be a strong and independent person. But perhaps he muses his name is a curse, because just as his name can also mean loner, he's been lonely and single his entire life. His colleagues look on, confused by his awkward silence. This is Dr. Kim in a nutshell. A 28-year-old man who graduated from a third-rate college and works as a contractor for a large corporation. His one hobby is reading serialized web novels on the subway on his way home from work. He stares at his phone, still reeling from the end of his decade-long obsession. But today's subway ride, he narrates, was unlike any other. Suddenly, a female voice cuts through his thoughts. Oh my, at this rate, you might get sucked into your phone. Startled, Doc's eye widens in surprise. He looks up from his phone, a step sounding as someone approaches him. Standing before him is a beautiful woman with light brown hair. Doctor recognizes her immediately. It's you, Sangha, from the HR department. Flustered, Doctor stammers hello. Sangha asks if he's heading home, and he awkwardly replies, Yes, you too? Sangha explains that she got lucky because her team manager is away on a business trip. Doctor flinches slightly, clearly intimidated by her presence. He can't believe he ran into Sangha, the most popular girl at work. She asks if he usually takes the subway. He thinks to himself that with her popularity, from the HR assistant manager to the finance team manager, there's probably a line of men waiting to drive her home. With a sigh, she admits that her bicycle was stolen. Doctor is surprised she commutes by bike. Sangha explains she's been working overtime and could use the exercise, plus some personal reasons. As Sangha smiles, Doctor can't help but admire her, understanding why she's so popular. With a nervous laugh, he dismisses the thought, telling himself that it's none of his business. They live in completely different worlds after all. But his brief, awkward encounter with Sangha wasn't what made this particular subway ride so memorable. Something else was about to happen. Sangha looks at her phone, practicing a phrase in Spanish, then turns to Doctor, asking him what it means. He replies, Pardon? She proudly explains that it's Spanish for, Please lend me some money. Doctor's taken aback, thinking to himself that she's a different breed altogether, studying even on the subway. He forces a smile and compliments her for studying hard. In return, Sangha cheerfully asks him what he's reading. Caught off guard, Doctor laughs nervously and waves his phone dismissively. Try to dodge the question while the student next to him looks on, annoyed. But Sangha leans in for a closer look, catching a glimpse of a chapter titled World After the Apocalypse, and asks if it's a novel. Doctor quickly makes up an excuse, awkwardly joking. Yeah, I guess you could say that I'm studying Korean. To his surprise, Sangha's eyes light up with genuine excitement. She exclaims that she loves novels and begins listing her favorite authors. Then she turns the question back to him, asking Hoosier's favorite author. He laughs nervously again, deflecting the question by saying she probably wouldn't know the author anyway. He knows he can never tell her what he's really reading, a niche web novel. The narration shifts back to Doctor's inner world, reminding us of his hobby, reading serialized web novels on the subway on his way home from work. A close-up on his eyes reveals his embarrassment and insecurity about his hobby. Although he's not proud of his hobby, he explains that the reason today is unlike any other is because of one specific web novel on his screen, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. This story, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, is a series he's been reading for the past 10 years. And that decade-long journey is ending today. He knows people might wonder why he's making such a fuss over a simple web novel, but this story in particular is very special to him. The reason is shown on his screen, an endless list of chapters, each with only one comment and one view. For years, he has been its sole reader. His connection to the novel runs deep. He's been reading this series ever since he was in the 8th grade. He read it when he was bullied at school, finding escape in its pages when he felt alone and hurt. He read it when he failed his college entrance exams and ended up at a third-rate university, feeling like an outcast. He even read it during his compulsory military service, when bad luck got him stationed on the grueling front line. And he reads it even now, as an unstable contract worker bouncing from company to company. Looking back, he realizes with a pang of sadness that he doesn't have a single happy memory. It's bittersweet that this fictional world, his constant companion for so many years, is now coming to an end. Today is the day the epilogue of TWSA will be uploaded. He sits surrounded by the shadows of other passengers, reflecting on the journey. A grand serial consisting of 3,149 episodes. A 10-year-long epic that began in his late teens and ended in his adulthood. He still can't believe the series went on for so long with an average view count of just 1. He reminisces about the novel's viewership. The first chapter had around 1,200 views, but by chapter 10, the viewers were greatly decreased, and now, as he looks at the endless list of chapters with only a single view, he realizes he's the only one left reading. Somehow, it felt like it had become a story written for him, and only for him. A story that deserved more recognition than it ever received. He wanted to support the author with a donation, but since he could barely make ends meet, he settled for leaving a heartfelt comment. "Sir, thank you for everything. I'll be looking forward to the epilogue." He'd tried recommending the series to others before, but they just criticized him, thinking he was an attention seeker or the author himself. People can be so cruel, he thinks. Just then, Sanga's voice cuts through his thoughts, calling his name. Pulled from his memories, he's startled to find Sanga looking at him. "I forgot she was here." He panics, realizing he needs to change the topic, as she remarks that a year has passed since they started at the company. Doctor plays along, laughing as he agrees. But the conversation takes an awkward turn when Sanga mentions that their contracts are ending soon. The air grows tense. Sanga's face falls as she simply says, "Oh." Doctor's cheerful facade is suddenly highlighted, showing he's made a mistake. He remembers the truth in an instant. Sanga was promoted to a full-time employee last month. His contract was ending, but hers wasn't. He quickly backpedals, offering a late congratulations and making a self-deprecating joke. Sanga politely reassures him it's fine, as her performance assessment isn't even complete yet. He can't help but admire her. Sanga is so cool, he thinks. If we were characters in a novel, she would definitely be the heroine. The difference between them was obvious. He didn't try, but Sanga gave it her all. He spent his time reading web novels, while Sanga studied. So it was only natural that Sanga would become a full-time employee, and he wouldn't. Sensing his somber mood, Sanga looks at him with concern, a bead of sweat on her face. Doctor?" she asks tentatively. He looks back at her, making a decision. In a clumsy attempt to connect, he offers, "If you want, I could tell you the name of the app one use." "Could I have been the protagonist?" The train continues to rattle along the tracks, the mundane sound contrasting with his grand, inner question. Sanga's voice breaks his reverie once more. "Doctor?" He turns to her, seemingly snapping out his days. "It's okay, Sanga." She looks at him, confused, as he mutters, "I don't know." His expression becomes serious, his gaze distant. A new thought appears, as of a message from someone else. If one thing was certain... Sanga, overhearing his mumble, repeats the words, "Your own life?" She looks at him with newfound admiration. "You're so inspiring, Doctor." He can only respond with confused sorry. Mistaking his existential gloom for profound wisdom, Sanga clenches her fist with determination. "I should also live my own life," she exclaims, leaving Doctor completely baffled. "Like you, I'll strive to live my life to the fullest," she declares. Doctor, utterly lost, can only think to himself, well, at least that got her to stop talking. Just then, his phone vibrates with a buzz. He looks down at the screen. A message, he wonders. The scene darkens as a thought crosses his mind in retrospect. Back then, I had no idea. A message notification pops up from a user, TLS123, containing a simple thank you. Doctor freezes, recognizing the username. TLS 123? Huh, is this the author of TWSA? He thinks in shock, while his future self narrates. What would happen to me next? His fingers fly across the screen as he sends a reply, asking if the person is indeed the author of his favorite novel. The author responds, confirming his identity. Thanks to you, I was able to finish my story. I also won a prize in a contest. Dakja is stunned. He covers his mouth in disbelief, realizing it really is him. He congratulates the author and asks about the contest, but the author deflects, saying it wasn't a big one. He then adds that the series will become paid content soon. The author explains that starting today with the epilogue, the novel will be monetized. As a token of his gratitude, he offers to send Dakja a special present and asks for his email address. The scene cuts to a glimpse of menacing and golden horns in the darkness as Dakja's future self narrates what was about to happen to this world. Dakja sees the author's message about a present. He reads that the author was able to publish the story thanks to him, and he's speechless. Excited by the news of the contest win, Dakja raises his hand to reply, figuring the author must just be embarrassed to talk about the contest. A small flower of hope blooms in his thoughts as he wonders if the present is a gift card, maybe for $50. Just then, his phone buzzes with a new message. It came, the present, he thinks, looking at an email from the author. The email states that the novel will become paid content at 7 p.m. and include a file that will help you. He checks the time, 6:55 p.m., only 5 minutes left. Thinking fast, he decides to go into his favorites and save the novel before it's monetized. But he stops confused. The app shows no results were found. That's weird, he thinks. Do they remove serials without prior notice when they become paid content? Suddenly, a sharp click echoes, the lights flicker erratically, casting dancing shadows across the passengers' faces before dying out completely, swallowing the subway in sudden, absolute darkness. A tense silence falls, broken only by Sanga's nervous whisper. What? But Dakja isn't just confused. A chilling realization dawns on him as he looks up from his phone. The time is exactly 7 p.m. Then, with a deafening crash, the train car jolts violently. Sanga and the other passengers are thrown from their seats, screaming in terror as the world turns into a blur of motion and sparks. The train screeches to a halt. Amidst the panicked screams, someone yells, "Is it a terrorist attack?" Chaos erupts inside the train as people stumble and fall in the darkness, their faces masks of pure terror. An unnatural, terrifying grin full of sharp teeth flashes in the darkness, a promise of the horror to come. Dakja immediately checks on Sanga. "Are you okay?" he asks. As she confirms she is, he tries to reassure her, saying it's probably nothing, his voice a stark contrast to the panic around them. On his phone screen, the clock strikes exactly 7 p.m. His narration echoes, "It was by sheer coincidence that I checked the time at that exact moment." His eyes are wide. The realization hits him. It's 7 p.m., so the paid content. A shrill alarm blares through the car, followed by a garbled announcement pleading for everyone to evacuate. Sanga grabs his arm, her voice trembling. "Dakja, what's going on?" But he's just as stunned as she is. A blinding flash of red light erupts from the front of the car, engulfing everything. Dakja shields his eyes, the intense light and crackling energy overwhelming his senses. Then, a holographic message materializes in the air before the terrified passengers. The free service of the 8,612th planetary system has come to an end, it declares. The main scenario will begin now. It was at that moment that the genre of my life changed. A line that seems to be a premonition. "It's a dakibi," someone exclaimed as a creature sprung into view. A dakibi is a mythical creature in Korean culture, similar to a goblin. The scene opens inside a crowded subway car. Suddenly, everyone, including protagonist Kim Dakja, looks up in surprise, as if reacting to an unseen event. A line from a story flashes through Kim Dakja's mind, though he wonders why that particular sentence came to him at that exact moment. A close-up on Kim Dakja's face shows his bewildered and slightly anxious expression, as he's still processing the strange feeling. Suddenly, the The subway grinds to a halt. The lights flicker off, plunging the entire cabin into darkness and sparking immediate concern among the passengers. Amidst the chaos and confusion of the other passengers, Kim Dokja and his colleague Usanga stand still. He tries to rationalize the situation, thinking to himself that subways stop all the time. Despite his attempts to remain calm, the opening lines of the story he knows all too well keep replaying in his mind, creating a sense of dread. He desperately tells himself that it doesn't make any sense, that it's impossible. But the thought lingers. Could it be a dakibi? Usanga, noticing his distress, turns to him with a concerned look, seemingly about to ask if he is okay. Kim Dokja continues to struggle with his thoughts, repeating that realistically, there's no way this could be true. It was completely impossible, but the internal conflict climaxes in a dramatic close-up of his eyes, wide with shock and a dawning, terrible realization. His mind flashes to the text from the web novel he was just reading on his phone, which describes a peculiar creature with 2 small horns, neither fairy angel nor devil. Back in the subway car, the passengers look up as a strange orb of energy appears. One woman urges the others to look, as words from the novel's description float ominously in the air. The passengers murmur in confusion, asking what the strange phenomenon is. Kim Dokja and Usanga look on, but his expression is one of pure shock as he realizes what it is. And then, the creature reveals itself, a small, white, fluffy being with 2 horns, hovering in the air. The text from the novel concludes, "So we called it a dakibi." A tight shot on Kim Dokja's eyes shows him staring intently, his worst fears being confirmed as he beholds the creature. The entire crowd of passengers stares up in unified shock and fear at the impossible creature floating before them. At that moment, the line is irrevocably crossed for Kim Dokja. As the text states, fiction and reality have overlapped. The dakibi sniffs the air curiously before letting out a stream of bizarre, unintelligible symbols, its voice a garbled mess. The passengers react with a mix of confusion and disgust. Some wonder what it is saying, while others dismiss it as an augmented reality prank. One person bluntly exclaims, "Ew, it's so ugly." In that moment of chaos, Kim Dokja has a chilling thought that separates him from everyone else. No one knew what was going on, except for him. While the other passengers are lost in fear and confusion, Kim Dokja looks on with grim certainty. He knows exactly what this is. That thing is definitely a dakibi, he thinks. He recalls the exact context from the novel he spent a decade reading. This was a dakibi that appeared in the opening paragraph of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, heralding a tragedy that would span thousands of chapters. He grips his phone tightly, his mind reeling. Impossible. How can this be, he thinks. The very same creature that marked the beginning of the apocalypse in the novel was now, impossibly, right in front of him. As Dokja grapples with this horrific realization, his colleague Usanga, completely oblivious to the danger, leans in. "I think it might be speaking Spanish," she whispers naively. "Should I try talking to it?" Dokja can only stare back, his eyes wide with the terrifying knowledge of what was coming. Kim Dokja frantically replies to Usanga, telling her not to be ridiculous. He points out that they don't even know what the creature is, and trying to communicate with it is pointless right now. Suddenly, the dakibi's garbled speech clears up. It announces that its language patch was malfunctioning, but now seems to be fixed. With a wide, unsettling grin, the creature asks, "Can everyone hear me now?" and then scolds the passengers for being noisy. One of the passengers, a man with a backpack, mistakes the situation for a prank, asking if they're filming a movie because he has an audition to get to. The dakibi mockingly laughs at the man's mention of an audition. It then mutters to itself that its research indicated putting up a paywall at 7 p.m. would attract the most customers, leaving the passengers utterly confused. The creature claps its hands, trying to gather everyone's attention for a very important announcement. However, the passengers are getting restless, with one man demanding they just start the train already. The crowd's confusion turns to anger. People start shouting that this is being done without their consent and demand compensation. Amidst the outrage, a small child points to the creature and innocently asks her mother if it's from a cartoon. As the passengers continue to protest loudly, Kim Dokja's internal monologue confirms his unique position. I know exactly how this story goes. Knowing the horrific events that are about to unfold based on the novel, Kim Dokja feels a sense of responsibility. He thinks to himself, I have to stop them, but the feeling of certainty is immediately followed by a wave of powerlessness. He knows what will happen, but he doesn't know how he can possibly intervene. Acting on instinct, Kim Dokja quickly grabs Usanga's arm and sternly tells her not to move. She looks back at him, surprised and confused by his sudden command. The Dakibi floats above the noisy crowd, its tone shifting from playful to annoyed. It sure is noisy here, isn't it? It says, ominously beginning a sentence with, I. The creature's voice drips with menace as it finishes its thought. Told you? In a terrifying close-up, the Dakibi's eyes glow a demonic red as it unleashes a powerful shout. Be quiet. The man who had complained about his audition looks up, his expression turning from annoyance to confusion as he registers the Dakibi's shout. A horrifying splat sound echoes through the car as dark liquid begins to splatter on the floor and onto passengers' shoes. Two passengers, a man and a woman, look on in absolute horror as a person in front of them violently explodes in a shower of blood. An overhead view captures the pure chaos as the passengers recoil in terror from the bloody explosion that has just occurred in the middle of the train car. The Dakibi reveals a monstrous, sadistic grin, clarifying, we're not filming a movie. The horrifying reality sets in as passengers scream, their heads exploding. The message is terrifyingly clear. This isn't a dream. The carnage continues as more passengers die in gruesome explosions. Through a close-up of its glowing red eye, the Dakibi's voiceover explains that this isn't novel or the reality they're familiar with. As the horror unfolds, Kim Dokja instinctively pulls Usanga close, shielding her from the bloody spectacle. With a bead of sweat running down his face, Kim Dokja stares grimly at the scene. He hated to admit it, but his doubt and disbelief were rapidly fading away. This was real. His internal monologue finishes the thought, solidify his acceptance of the horrific situation as he watched the floor of the subway car become painted in blood. Having silenced the car with a horrifying display of power, the Dakibi's voice returns, dripping with condescension. It begins a chilling speech, asking the terrified survivors, all of you had quite a cushy life until now, haven't you? Its words hang in the air, landing on the few survivors who are left. An old man and a younger man beside him can only cower in place, their faces masked with pure terror, forced to listen to the creature's judgment. The Dakibi continues its tirade, laughing maniacally as it scolds the passengers for enjoying privileged lives, being able to breathe, eat, and live without paying any costs. With its eyes glowing in a wide, terrifying grin, the creature makes a chilling declaration. But it's all over now. Its voice echoes as it delivers the core principle of this new reality. Nothing is free in life, isn't that right? The remaining passengers are frozen in terror. Some try to flee. Others are paralyzed with fear, and two men can only clutch each other tightly, bracing for the worst. A man in a pinstripe suit, desperate to find a solution, steps forward and confronts the Dakibi, asking if what it wants is money. Kim Dokja recognizes a man and whispers to Usanga that it's Mr. Han from the finance team, someone who is known to have gotten his job through connections. Sanga quietly confirms. Believing he can buy his way out, Mr. Han confidently offers his business card and asks the creature how much it needs, throwing out figures like 1 or 2 million. The Dakibi feigns interest as Mr. Han frantically rummages through his wallet, promising to give it anything if it lets him out. As he pulls out a handful of cash, Mr. Han smiles, thinking to himself that money solves everything. The Dakibi muses that money is merely a human construct. The Dakibi's patience wears thin. It snaps, and Mr. Han is suddenly engulfed in flames. As he screams in agony, the creature explains that his money is only valid in his own dimension. Crouching on the floor, scorched but alive, Mr. Han is warned by the Dakibi that his paper money has no value here. The creature threatens to blow his head up if he tries a similar stunt again. With a snap of its fingers, the Dakibi announces that there's no time for chit-chat as their debt is piling up. It tells them they'll have to earn the money themselves. The dakibi's horns suddenly grow to a massive size before it swooshes through the air, flying over the heads of the terrified passengers. Two messages blaze into existence in the air. The constellations are now making an entrance as crackling energy envelopes the shocked passengers. A sharp ding sound fills the car as bright blue holographic screens appear in front of every passenger, who can only stare in confusion and ask what is happening. While most passengers are terrified by the appearance of the screens, one young man, Kim Namwon, looks on with a sinister smirk, clearly intrigued by the turn of events. Unlike the others, Kim Dokja stares at the blue screen before him with a look of intense focus and understanding. The screen, viewed from behind Kim Dokja, displays an envelope icon and a stark message. The main scenario has arrived. The details of main scenario number 1 are revealed, titled, Prove Your Value. The task is to kill one or more living organisms. The time limit is 30 minutes. The reward is 300 coins, and the penalty for failure is death. Floating near the ceiling, the dakibi clasps his hands together and wishes everyone good luck, its casual demeanor making the deadly scenario even more terrifying. With a final, massive, evil grin and a flash of red from its eyes, the dakibi declares its anticipation. I expect to see an interesting story, leaving them in a state of shock and panic. Continuing from the previous chapter, the subway car is filled with murmurs of confusion and fear. Amidst the chaos, Kim Dokja and his colleague, Usanga, stand in the flickering lights of the now-stalled train. Usanga, with tears in her eyes and sweat beading on her face, frantically tries to call for help, but her phone shows no signal. The police are unreachable. In a panic, she turns to Dokja, exclaiming that the police aren't picking up and asking what they should do. Dokja, with a surprisingly calm demeanor, simply tells her to stay calm. Dokja then asks Usanga if she remembers a game their company's development team was working on, a game about surviving an apocalypse. She looks at him, confused, wondering what that has to do with their current situation. Looking her directly in the eyes, Dokja places his hands on her shoulders and grimly states that they have become part of that survival game now. Usanga is stunned by his words. As a holographic blue screen materializes before her, she stammers, questioning his talk of a game and its rules. Dokja explains with a determined look that every game has rules, and all they need to do now is figure out what those rules are. A heavy silence hangs between Kim Dokja and Usanga. They stand side by side, the dust-like particles of the new world swirling around them as they brace for what's to come. As Dokja processes the situation, the words from the novel he read flash through his mind. The first sign, the appearance of a dakibi with antennae. The second sign, a litter of dead bodies strewn across the subway cabin. The third sign, office workers, trembling and covered in blood. And the fourth sign, an old lady praying fervently in her seat for salvation. Seeing all the signs fall into place, Dokja can no longer deny the reality of his situation. The world of the novel is now his world. While Dokja comes to terms with his new reality, chaos erupts elsewhere in the car as a man desperately bangs on the doors, screaming to be let out. It was undeniable. The web novel he'd been reading for over a decade, 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, was coming to life right before his very eyes. As the gravity of the situation sinks in, Dokja takes a deep breath and asks himself the only question that matters now. What do I need to do to survive? As if on cue, the first main scenario appears before everyone. To prove their value, they must kill one or more living organisms within 30 minutes. The penalty for failure is death. Just as panic is about to take over the subway car, a firm voice cuts through the noise, telling everyone to calm down. The voice continues, urging everyone to take a deep breath and stop what they're doing. Kim Dokja and Usanga turn toward the sound. A man with a sturdy build and a commanding presence steps forward, announcing that this is a national emergency. He declares that he will take charge of the situation to prevent further casualties. Passengers shout back, questioning his authority. In response, he presents his official ID from the Ministry of Defense, revealing his name, Lee Hyun-seong. He further clarifies his identity, stating that he is an Army lieutenant currently serving in Unit 6502. Lee Hyun-seong stands his ground, holding up his identification for all to see, a beacon of order in the encroaching chaos. Kim Dokja looks on, surprised, as the passengers begin to murmur with a sliver of hope, realizing they have a soldier in their midst. A lieutenant? This could provide them some much-needed order. Just as a sense of relief settles, Lee Hyun-seong turns to the anxious crowd. He announces that he has just received a message from his unit and holds up his phone for them to see, hoping it contains answers. On the phone, a message confirms the gravity of the situation, a Level 1 national emergency alert, ordering all personnel to return to their units immediately. This is not a drill. The passengers, desperate for answers, crowd around Lee Hyun-seong. One man demands to know what's happening, while another yells for him to contact the president at the Blue House. Hyun-seong, however, can't get a signal to his army base. Hyun-seong apologizes, explaining that a mere soldier like him doesn't have the clearance to contact the Blue House directly. His answer is met with anger, as a passenger questions how he plans to control the situation. From the side, Kim Dokja watches the exchange unfold. In his mind, Dokja reflects that he wasn't surprised by the declaration of a national emergency. He had already expected it based on the novel. It was something else that caught him by surprise. He thinks about the man who stepped up for everyone's safety, the man named Lieutenant Hyun-seong Lee. Dokja realizes with jolt, I know him. Though he's never seen the man in person, he knew him by name from the countless hours he spent reading. He was a character from the novel, a Republic of Korea Army lieutenant known as Steel Blade, Hyun-seong Lee. Dokja scratches his head, sweating. It's hard to believe that a character from 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse has actually appeared right in front of him, talking and acting exactly as described in the story. But as he scrolls through his phone, a thought stops him cold. He looks at Lee Hyun-seong again, a sudden doubt crossing his mind. Was this really how Hyun-seong Lee was introduced in the original story? No, Dokja was absolutely certain. This was not how he first appeared in the novel. The character Lee Hyun-seong originally appeared after the first scenario had ended. A chilling question forms in his mind. Then what is going on? As Dokja grapples with this unsettling change, another passenger shouts that the Prime Minister is making a speech confirming the national emergency. Dokja wishes he could just reread the novel to know exactly what was happening. Just then, Usanga turns to him, her face pale. She holds out her phone, showing the beginning of a national broadcast. The Prime Minister appears on screen, reporting unidentified terrorist attacks in Seoul and across the country, vowing that the government will use all necessary means to combat them. Dokja recognizes this part. It was indeed in the story, a natural response to calm the public. But as Dokja listens to the speech, he thinks to himself that hearing in reality, it just sounds ridiculous. Another passenger questions why the Prime Minister is the one making the speech. A rumor quickly spreads through the car, passed from phone to phone. The terrorists had already gotten to the president. Someone dismisses it as a groundless rumor from a video's comment section, but Dokja knows better. He thinks to himself, it's not just a groundless rumor. And suddenly, a series of loud bangs rocks the train and the lights flicker violently, throwing the passengers into a fresh wave of panic and screams. On the phone screens, the broadcast is horrifically interrupted. The Prime Minister's speech is cut short as his head explodes in a splash of black. The screen glitches and crackles, the image of the assassinated Prime Minister distorting into a horrifying static. A familiar, chilling voice resonates through the static as the distorted image of the dead Prime Minister remains on screen. I already told you. The Dakibi's face fills the screen, its eyes glowing red and its mouth stretched into a terrifying manic grin. It screams, this is not just some joke, like terrorism. Looking down on the terrified passengers, the Dakibi laughs. It muses that since the people of this country are supposedly good at games, they should be able to handle this. As the Dakibi finishes its sentence, the main scenario's timer flashes and begins to rapidly decrease, startling the already terrified passengers. With a great whoosh, the timer plummets. A system message bluntly states the obvious. The remaining time has been reduced. The countdown timer finally stops, leaving the passengers with a dauntingly short amount of time. Just 10 minutes left. The main scenario window flickers, the original 30-minute time limit crackling, as is overwritten by the Dakibi's cruel whim. The new, much shorter time limit is now officially set. 10 minutes. To make matters worse, the Dakibi adds a terrifying new rule. If the first death does not occur within the next 5 minutes, every single living organism in the cabin will be terminated. This sends a fresh wave of terror through the crowd. Passengers cry out, asking if anyone heard the sick joke, while others turn to Lee Hyeon-seon for guidance, their hope in him quickly turning to desperation. Overwhelmed by fear, Yu Sanga instinctively grabs onto Kim Dokja's arm, seeking comfort in the face of escalating horror. Dokja remains focused. He thinks to himself that everything is unfolding exactly as it did in the beginning of the novel, yet he can't shake the unsettling feeling that something is fundamentally wrong. He glances at Lee Hyeon-seon, who is trying to manage the panicked crowd. The discrepancy clicks in Dokja's mind. Hyeon-seon, a major supporting character, has already appeared, far earlier than he was supposed to. If supporting character's entrance was moved up, Dokja wonders why the protagonist of the novel, Yu Jong-hyuk, hasn't appeared yet. Dokja scans a chaotic subway car. According to his memory of the novel, Yu Jong-hyuk should be making his appearance any minute now. Suddenly, a passenger lets out a terrified shriek. The reason for the scream becomes terrifyingly clear. In the cabin behind them, someone has been murdered. Bloody handprints smear the inside of the door window as people inside bang on the glass. The passengers in Dokja's car scream, yelling not to let them through. One passenger rushes to hold the door shut, but as his hand makes contact, it's met with a violent spark of yellow electricity. The man is thrown backward by the powerful electrical shock, crying out in pain as the energy courses through the doorway. Staring in disbelief, the man who was shocked explains that there's some kind of invisible wall blocking the door. Kim Dokja and Yu Sanga look on in alarm. A system message materializes, confirming their new prison. No one may enter or leave the cabin until the scenario is complete. The passenger on the floor looks up in horror at the crackling, invisible barrier that has sealed their fate. The Dakibi reappears, broadcasting live on a passenger's phone. It laughs, commenting on how some cabins are getting interesting while others, like theirs, haven't even started the bloodshed. To spur them into action, the Dakibi offers a little jolt. With a snap of its fingers, it decides to show them exactly what will happen if they fail to act within the next 5 minutes. A large holographic screen materializes in the air, broadcasting a live feed of a classroom filled with high school students. One of the passengers, a man in glasses, looks at the screen in utter confusion, asking, "Huh?" Another passenger recognizes the scene instantly, identifying the students on screen as being from Taepung Girls High School. On the live feed, chaos erupts. A loud klaxon blares, and the classroom walls begin to crash inwards. The students of Taepung Girls High School scream in absolute terror as their time runs out. A final, chilling message appears over the horrific scene, delivering the system's cold verdict. You have exceeded the time limit. As Kim Dokja and Yu Sanga watch in horror, the system announces its final, chilling verdict, proceeding with checkout. Unable to bear the sight, Dokja shuts his eyes as the sounds of the massacre begin. The screen becomes a horrifying tableau of blood and screams as the students are brutally killed, their cries for help turning into gurgles of death. Desperate pleas of "let me out" and "no" are cut short by sickening splatters as a penalty is carried out without mercy. The passengers on the subway can only watch, their faces a mask of pure terror and disbelief. A woman covers her mouth, whispering, "Oh my gosh!" How could they? Two other passengers stare blankly at the carnage, completely catatonic with shock. But amidst the slaughter, the feed focuses on one student who has chosen to fight for her life. In the distorted feed, two girls are locked in a desperate struggle. One has her hands wrapped around the other's throat, forced to kill to survive. Her hands tremble as she squeezes, the horror of her actions visible even through the glitching screen. She closes her eyes, committing the terrible act to save her own life. The onlooking passengers gasp, witnessing the brutal reality of the scenario's demands. The feed shows a lone girl standing over her classmate's body, panting heavily. She is the only one left, The system announces the result of the gruesome spectacle. The survivor, channel hashtag Bay23515, is Jahaili. Her face is shown on the screen, a streak of blood on her cheek, her eyes empty. The system provides her full details. A second-year student from Class B at Taepung Girls High School. The feed pulls back to show the full scene. The lone survivor, Jahaili, standing silently in a classroom of death. The Dakibi's face returns, its massive mouth stretched in a sickening grin. It taunts the horrified onlookers. What do you think? Fun, right? A bead of sweat rolls down Kim Dokja's face. He is utterly speechless, the sheer brutality of the Dakibi's game finally hitting him with its full force. He staggers back, completely shaken and overwhelmed by the horrific reality he has just witnessed. Seeing his extreme reaction, the other passengers instinctively take a step back, their fear and suspicion now directed at the man who seems to know too much. As blood pools on the floor of their own car, and the image of the lone survivor Jali still hangs in the air, one passenger finally snaps, screaming into the chaos. What the hell is going on? In the midst of the chaos, a hand flinches away from an unknown stimulus. On the subway, as the world begins to end, Kim Dokja and his colleague Usanga tremble in fear. The air sparkles with the particles of the new reality. Kim Dokja looks around the chaotic train car, a bead of sweat on his face. He senses that something is off. He anxiously thinks to himself, wondering why the protagonist of the novel he's been reading hasn't appeared yet. Staring at his phone, he realizes that the events he knows from the story and new, unfamiliar events are all happening at once, deviating from the original plot. In a panic, he tries to search for the web novel, 3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World, but the search yields no results. He curses, realizing it must have been removed. Just as he starts to despair, a new thought gives him a flicker of hope. He quickly checks his email and finds an unbelievable message. It's from the author of the novel, explaining that since the series is now paid content, he is sending Dokja the entire file as a gift. Kim Dokja's eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated shock. There it is, an attached file named 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse.txt. His finger hovers over the download icon, a lifeline in this new world. He stares at his phone, completely stunned by this impossible stroke of luck. He rubs his eyes, trying to make sure he's not dreaming, but his expression turns to wide-eyed shock once again as he confirms it's real. A close-up shows the file being saved, securing his only guide to this apocalypse. Kim Dokja is baffled. Did the author really just send him the novel as a gift? He briefly wonders about the legality of it all before dismissing the thought. Suddenly, 2 blue holographic windows materialize before him, declaring that he has received an exclusive attribute and an unlocked skill slot. He stares at the glowing blue panels, realizing the world is now truly operating on game-like principles, just as the novel described. Hoping to understand his new power, he speaks the command to the system. Attributes window. A ding announces a system response, and a new window appears before his surprised face. But his hope turns to confusion as the window displays an error message. Attributes window cannot be opened. He's perplexed by the system's refusal to display his attributes. He repeatedly tries to open the window, growing more frantic. What the hell is going on, he thinks. Without knowing his attribute and skill, he's at a huge disadvantage. Flustered and getting nowhere with the system, he stares blankly at the unhelpful blue screens. Giving up for the moment, he decides to read the author's attached file first. As his finger touches the screen, a new system notification dings. A system window announces his newly activated attribute, the ability to read at a faster speed. Suddenly, his eye glows a brilliant blue, reflecting the streams of text he is now able to process at an incredible speed. The information floods his mind as he reads the novel's opening, leaving him stunned. After a loud slam from the subway door, Dokja looks up, his eyes still glowing. He's stunned. His special attribute was just reading faster, but thanks to that, he was able to read the opening chapter in less than a minute. As he processes the text he just speed read, Dokja recalls a key passage describing the novel's protagonist looking over the people in subway cabin number 3707, feeling no remorse. A horrifying realization dawns on him. While the novel's hero was in car 3707, a quick glance at the sign confirms that Dakja is in car 3807. Standing in his own train car, Dakja finally understands the source of his uneasiness. The story he knows is happening one car away. The reason events were unfolding differently was because the protagonist of the story was actually in the subway car behind his own, where a bloody massacre was already taking place. Dakja and Usanga stand amidst a growing panic as a chilling question forms in his mind. If the hero is in the other car, what did the novel say happened to people in car 3807? As the chaos mounts, a worried Usanga turns to Dakja, asking if they should try to intervene. But Dakja is lost in his memory of the novel's text, which described this very scene. A grim expression spreads across Dakja's face as he recalls the novel's dark prophecy for his train car. He remembers the chilling words from the book. For the passengers of car 3807, it was already too late, because according to the story that he alone had read to the end, only 2 people were destined to survive in that cabin. Suddenly, a vicious voice cuts through the noise, cursing at an unseen person. An elderly woman cries out as she is violently grabbed by another passenger. The attacker, a young man with white hair and a name tag identifying him as Kim Namwon, silences the woman's pleas. With glowing red eyes, Kim Namwon viciously smacks the old woman, spilling blood. Dakja watches in horror, but also with a sense of grim recognition. He knew exactly who the 2 survivors were supposed to be. Kim Namwon, one of the destined survivors, glares menacingly, confirming his role as a violent antagonist from the novel. Both Dakja and Sanga are shocked by the sudden brutality. A terrible realization hits Dakja. According to the story, Sanga is going to die. He glances at the novel's text on his phone, which confirms his worst fears. Besides the 2 survivors, Kim Namwon and Lee Hyun-song, everyone in the cabin, including Dakja himself, is fated to die. Just then, another passenger shouts angrily, intervening in the assault. A hand firmly grips Kim Namwon's arm, stopping his attack. It's Mr. Han, a middle-aged man in a suit who chastises a young man for not respecting his elders. Dakja and Sanga look on in surprise. They recognize the man as their superior from work, Mr. Han. Kim Namwon turns, his red eyes filled with irritation at the interruption. Yanking his arm free, Kim Namwon aggressively confronts Mr. Han. "What the hell, old man? Do you want to die too?" He sneers, completely ignoring the appeal to civility. Mr. Han can only stare back, baffled by the boy's hostility. Still trying to make him see reason, Mr. Han points towards a glowing blue scenario window at the front of the car. "Over there," he insists. "Don't you see that?" He hopes the clear, undeniable instruction from the system will get through to him. But Kim Namwon is unfazed. As chaos erupts and people scream for help, he coldly tells Mr. Han that the army isn't coming to save them. With the system's rules crackling around them, the passengers descend into madness. Pleas for mercy are met with shouts to shut up and die. Someone has to be sacrificed. Holding the terrified elderly woman, a crazed Kim Namwon declares that it's up to them now. They have to be the ones to pick who dies. Mr. Han flinches as Namwon reads his mind, mocking his belief that they are above killing to survive, like a pack of animals. Namwon continues, saying that while he'd normally agree, their current situation changes everything. In the background, the soldier Lee Hyun-seong watches with troubled expression. Looming like a demon with glowing red eyes, Namwon tells him to think wisely. It's kill or be killed, because the world they knew has just ended. And in this new, shattered world, there are new, brutal rules to follow. As Dakja watches Namwon beat a passage of death, he recalls that in the novel, Kim Namwon was one of the first to fully embrace the cruelty of this new world. It was Kim Namwon who drove a wedge into the cracking foundation of their humanity, taunting the other passengers by asking if they would rather just sit there and die. And with that, he shattered the last remnants of morality that held them together. Spurred by his actions, the other passengers finally snap and join the frenzy. The soldier, Lee Hyun-seong, cringes and clenches his fist, unable to watch as the passengers turn on one another in a desperate bid for survival. The scenario's grim ultimatum hangs in the air. If a life is not taken within the next 5 minutes, everyone in the train car will die. A bloody montage shows the faces of the terrified passengers as they are brutally struck down by their fellow travelers. As he watches the massacre unfold, Dokja is suddenly reminded of a line he read a long time ago in a book. He recalls a passage about executioners in a firing squad who all pull their triggers at the same time. Even Mr. Han, who tried to stop the violence, is now splattered with blood. The purpose, the book explained, is to conceal who is truly responsible for the death. A young boy holding an insect case watches the horror, a silent witness. Dokja feels a strange sense of detachment from the carnage around him. It was as if he was simply reading this exact scene from the pages of the novel. They were all trapped in a different world, a world of life and death, while he was just a spectator. He felt that all he could do was stand and watch. He knew that if he meddled with the story's events, he might lose the advantages knowledge of the future provided. But as he watched the scene, a conflict began to brew within him. Was it truly fair to just stand by and watch the elderly woman die, just so that he could live? He squeezes his phone, the physical copy of the story he is trying to protect. Before he can decide, Usanga gasps and dashes forward, unable to watch the woman be killed. Dokja reacts instantly, grabbing her arm to stop her. He warns her not to be reckless, telling her that if she interferes, she will be killed too. He looks at his colleague, her face a mask of determined righteousness, and knows he has to stop her. As he looks at Usanga's righteous determination, Dokja thinks to himself that some people are just destined to shine, regardless of the genre they find themselves in. He recognizes her innate heroism, even in this brutal new reality. But he knows the cold, hard truth of this world. Sangha cannot change the story, because she isn't the heroine here. He pleads with her to stay put and listen to him just this once, making a desperate promise that he'll never bother her again if she does. After convincing her to stay back, Dokja takes a deep, steadying breath, preparing himself for what he's about to do. He exhales, steeling his resolve. He thinks to himself that this wasn't part of his plan and that it's too early to interfere, but his hand is being forced. Sangha calls out his name, confused, as he steps forward. He explains in his mind that the reason he didn't act sooner wasn't fear of Namwon or the others, and it wasn't because he approved of their savage, murderous actions. He was simply waiting for the right moment to make his move, and as he looks down the blood-soaked train car, he knows that moment has arrived. As a massive explosion of power erupts from down the car, Dokja's eyes snap open with fierce intensity. The right moment is now. In a flash, he dashes forward, throwing himself directly into the heart of the chaos. He sprints through the carnage, past the dead and the dying, a blur of motion against a backdrop of pandemonium. The system window for main scenario number 1 hangs in the air, a stark reminder of the objective. Prove your value. Kill one or more living organisms. The penalty for failure, death. The timer continues to tick down, showing just over 7 minutes remaining. The stage is set, and Dokja has finally made his entrance. As the scenario demands a life, Kim Dokja rushes forward. Kim Namwon, the white-haired teenager, is surprised by this sudden attack. With a powerful shove, Kim Dokja tackles Kim Namwon, sending them both flying across the train car. They crash violently through the train's glass door, shattering it completely. Smoke and sparks fly from the destroyed door as the train continues to speed along the tracks. Kim Namwon, enraged by the interruption, furiously screams at Kim Dokja, demanding to know what his problem is. But Kim Dokja reveals his true intentions in his thoughts. Pushing Namwon wasn't just about saving the old lady. It was part of a larger plan. Ignoring the other passengers who are urging him to kill the old lady, Kim Dokja frantically scans a chaotic train car, searching for something specific. His eyes lock onto his target. He's found it. Pushing to the panicked crowd, he heads straight for a young boy, Lee Gilleong, who is holding a plastic container. Kim Dokja grabs the startled boy by the collar of his shirt. He leans in and speaks to the terrified Lee Gilleong. Grimacing, Kim Dokja takes a container of insects from the boy and then hands it back, telling him to hold on to it. Meanwhile, the violence continues as a man is about to stomp on someone. Kim Dokja yells out, trying to stop him, declaring that killing the old lady won't guarantee their survival. His words catch the attention of the other passengers, who look over in shock and confusion, momentarily halting their panicked actions. Kim Dokja stands firm, his expression determined. He thinks to himself with satisfaction, "Good, I have their attention." He begins to reason with the crowd, questioning the logic of their actions. He points out that even if killing the old lady buys them time, what will happen after that? One of the passengers flinches, the weight of Kim Dokja's question hitting him. He continues, planting seeds of doubt and fear. If the Dakibi's words are true, it means everyone has to kill someone. "So, who will you kill next?" he asks. "Will you kill the person beside you?" A sinister laugh cuts through the tension. It's Kim Namwon. He scoffs at the dilemma, laughing as if the answer is simple. With a manic grin, Kim Namwon declares that they'll just kill the losers next. But Kim Dokja calmly retorts that there's no need to worry, as the chances are 50-50 anyway. A slight smile plays on Kim Dokja's lips. He had predicted this exact response from Namwon. Kim Dokja then poses a shocking question to the stunned passengers. Why gamble with our lives, when there's a way to survive this without becoming a murderer? They can only react with disbelief, asking what he means. A smirk plays on his lips as he begins to reveal the loophole he's found. "Have you forgotten?" he asks. "The scenario didn't say we have to kill a human being." He clarifies a rule for everyone. It said we have to kill one or more living organisms. He holds up a single grasshopper as proof. Kim Dokja stands before the other passengers, holding the insect container, ready to demonstrate a solution to the deadly scenario. The realization dawns on the crowd as they see the grasshoppers in the container. Insects, a life form they can kill without becoming murderers. A wave of desperate hope washes over them. Killing one of those insects means they can survive. Kim Dokja observes as the bloodlust that had been directed at the old lady finds a new target. The crowd's frantic desperation now comes hurtling toward him, their focus entirely on the insects he holds. In this moment of chaos, Kim Dokja feels an unexpected emotion and asks himself, "But why? Why is my heart beating with joy in this precarious situation?" A smile spreads across his face as he continues his inner monologue. "Why am I smiling?" Surrounded by the swirling chaos of desperate hands and glowing eyes, he questions his own nature. Was I always this kind of person? With a sickening crunch, he crushes a grasshopper in his fist, sealing his first kill. Instead of sharing, Kim Dokja throws the rest of the insects from the container into the air, shocking the other passengers. A mad scramble ensues as everyone dives and claws at the ground, desperately trying to catch one of the few remaining grasshoppers. A system window appears before him, confirming his action. The first kill mission has been accomplished. He immediately receives his reward, a bonus of 100 coins. Kim Dokja calmly watches the chaos he has unleashed as people fight desperately for the insects on the floor of the train car. He pants, a bead of sweat running down his face as he observes the raw survival instincts of the people around him. With just over 3 minutes left on the clock, a voice cuts through the noise, asking Kim Dokja why he threw the insects. Kim Dokja turns to see who is questioning his methods. It's Kim Namwon. He casually suggests that Dokja could have simply handed over the bugs instead of creating this free-for-all. Namwon's eyes narrow as he points out the crucial detail. There were only 3 insects left in the box, not enough for everyone. He bursts into laughter, having figured out Dokja's cruel logic. "So you threw them since not all of us can live?" Dokja simply confirms, "Yes." But Namwon's laughter continues as he dismisses Dokja's reasoning, calling it ridiculous, leaving Dokja momentarily confused. Namwon dismisses the simple explanation, believing no one in their right mind would create such chaos just because there weren't enough insects to go around. He suspects a deeper, more sinister motive. His eyes glowing with manic energy, Namwon confronts Dokja with his accusation. "Be honest," he grins. "You just wanted to watch them fight for their lives, didn't you?" He sees a kindred spirit in Dokja's cruelty. Kim Dokja thinks to himself that Namwon is correct. He is a cruel person who enjoys situations like this. Suddenly, a system window appears, activating his character profile, personal skill. The skill reveals Kim Namwon's profile. He's a 19-year-old edgelord with skills in knife fighting and a grim dark awakening. The system's evaluation warns that it's best not to get involved with him. As Doctor reads the profile, he begins to understand his own attributes. He recalls from a novel that most teenagers like Namwon couldn't handle the apocalypse, but Namwon was a special case. He was a delusional demon, an edgelord who was anything but ordinary. Doctor remembers that Namwon had been waiting for this world and adapted to it with unusual speed. Now, this delusional demon makes an offer. Team up with me. A system notification confirms Namwon's interest in him. As the system confirms his increased understanding of the character, Kim Doctor realizes with surprise that the delusional demon, Kim Namwon, wants to join forces with him. The main scenario window remains, a stark reminder of their current situation. They have a time limit to prove their value by killing a living organism or face the penalty of death. The clock is ticking. Less than 3 minutes remain. The scene opens on a horrific aftermath inside a subway car. Bodies are strewn across the floor, engulfed in flames, painting a grim picture of the brutal survival scenario that has just unfolded. A close-up reveals the number of the carriage where the carnage took place. 3707. A heavy combat boot steps firmly onto the blood-soaked, ash-covered floor, indicating someone is moving through the wreckage. A man in a dark suit walks away from the chaos, leaving the burning train car behind him. Suddenly, 2 survivors cry out in panic, realizing someone has escaped. One frantically asks where the person went, while the other yells for everyone to move and catch them. However, one of the remaining men turns his back on them with a cold expression, stating, "Sorry, I work alone," abandoning the others to their fate. The focus shifts to a tense standoff. Kim Dokja, looking uneasy, faces off against a man with striking white hair and a maniacal look in his eyes. Dokja thinks to himself that teaming up with Namwon Kim will be the logical choice for survival. However, because he has read the novel Ways of Survival, he knows better and decides against it. Knowing his future, Dokja understands the danger Namwon poses. Namwon, with a smirk, puts a hand on Dokja's shoulder and tells him to get out of the way, as he has unfinished business with that granny. With a deranged grin, Namwon holds up a bloody sack, revealing his cruel nature. He declares that he can't let the bug he caught escape his grasp. Just as Namwon tries to move past him, Dokja acts decisively, grabbing his wrist to stop him. Namwon is caught off guard, his eyes wide with surprise as Dokja firmly holds him back, preventing him from going after the old woman. Enraged by the interference, Namwon confronts Dokja, questioning his motives. "What? Are you trying to act like a hero now? Or do you have a split personality?" A chilling, knowing smile spreads across Dokja's face. He retorts that know-it-alls are all the same, all while thinking to himself how much he truly hated Namwon's character in the novel. Provoked, Namwon snarls at people like Dokja, make him sick. As the tension escalates, system messages appear, notifying Dokja that Namwon now despises him and his affinity with the character has decreased. The two are locked in a tense stare-down, their faces inches apart. Having had enough, Namwon breaks the silence, his voice laced with menace as he says, "I said..." A violent slash of purple energy cuts through the air, aimed directly at Dokja, but Dokja swiftly dodges the attack. Namwon looks on in disbelief, muttering that Dokja isn't half bad. Dokja, however, had anticipated the move completely. Despite landing a hit, Dokja stumbles back in shock. He recognizes a purple aura flaring up around Namwon, identifying it as the powerful skill of the edgelord attribute. A system window confirms it. Skill, Grimdark Awakening Level 1. Namwon fully activates his power, lunging at Dokja with incredible speed. Dokja realizes with alarm that the fight has just gotten serious. Namwon's enhanced power results in a massive impact, slamming into the spot where Dokja was just a moment ago. Cackling with insane glee, Namwon revels in his newfound strength, his body crackling with dark purple energy as he shouts, "What's this?" Watching this display of psychotic power, Dokja finally understands. This overwhelming strength is precisely why the original protagonist of the novel still chose to recruit a psychopath like Namwon. The sheer force is undeniable. As this realization dawns on him, a system notification pops up. By witnessing Namwon's true nature and power firsthand, Kim Dokja's understanding of the character has increased, giving him a deeper insight just as the pressure mounts. Faced with Namwon's overwhelming power, Dokja clutches his head as a sharp pain throbs. He wonders if now is the time to use his special skill. As if in response to his thoughts, a system window appears before him, announcing, "You have unlocked level 1 of your personal skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint." Dokja stares in stunned silence at the notification hovering in the air, barely managing to utter a confused, "Huh?" He processes the name of his newfound ability, questioning it internally. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. He has no idea what the skill actually does. Meanwhile, one of the other survivors looks around the chaotic train car and yells out in frustration, "Damn it! Where did all the insects go?" The remaining survivors panic as a powerful surge of purple energy erupts from Namwon's location. Without warning, Namwon renews his assault on Dokja, his attacks fast and furious. He swings wildly, his power tearing through the carriage, but Dokja seems to narrowly avoid each blow. Dokja dodges yet another powerful swing, causing Namwon to miss completely and scream in frustration. Completely enraged that none of his attacks are landing, Namwon screams at Dokja, "Why aren't you getting hit?" Dokja looks on with a calm, focused expression and tells him, "Try all you want, but you won't be able to hit me." At that moment, his new skill activates. The Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint gives him a flash of insight, showing him Namwon's next move, an attack aimed at his right shoulder. A blue light gleams in Dokja's eye as he processes the information from his skill. Just as predicted, Namwon strikes. But knowing exactly where the attack was headed, Dokja dodges it with ease. His skill instantly warns him of the next attack, a direct hit to the face. Again, Dokja reacts just in time, ducking under the deadly blow that swooshes past his head. Dokja thinks to himself that as soon as his second skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, was activated, he knew exactly what Namwon was going to do before he did it. It was as if he could read his mind. Furious at being made a fool of, Namwon curses Dokja, calling him a slimy little jerk as he prepares another attack. Dokja calmly walks away, realizing his current predicament. While he can dodge all of Namwon's attacks, he is not strong enough to retaliate. All he can do is hold on and wait for an opportunity. Namwon points out that time is running out. Dokja glances at the scenario timer, which shows less than 2 minutes remaining. He curses, realizing he's on a strict clock. Namwon's eyes narrow as he glares at Dokja, searching for a way to land a hit. Suddenly, Dokja's eyes widen in horror as he looks past Namwon at the old woman lying unconscious on the floor. A terrible realization dawns on him. If that old lady dies, Namwon will clear the scenario. With grim determination, Dokja steels himself. He knows that whatever happens, he absolutely cannot let a monster like Namwon move on to the next scenario. But Namwon is one step ahead. He smirks, revealing a knife. "Haha, I knew you would make that move," he says, anticipating Dokja's attempt to protect his only way of clearing the scenario. Dokja's skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, flashes with dire warning, showing him Namwon's intended target, the heart. Namwon lunges, his knife-fighting skill activating. Seeing the attack coming, Dokja makes a split-second, ruthless decision. He grabs the unconscious old woman's body to use as a shield. Instead of hitting Dokja, the blade sinks into the old woman. Dokja has successfully blocked a fatal blow, but at a moral cost. Dokja cries out as the impact still wounds him, a burning pain spreading across his shoulder. He recalls from the novel that Namwon was a military geek, which explains her proficiency with a knife. Namwon prepares to strike again, unfazed by the brutal tactic. Grunting with effort, Dokja struggles to keep hold of the woman's body, his expression a mixture of pain and resolve. He stumbles back, carrying the woman to the blood-stained train car, the grim reality of his actions setting in. In this desperate moment, Dokja is hit by a wave of bleak introspection. He wonders if he is fated to die here, in a world where only the fittest survive. But then he has a cynical correction to his own thought. The world has always been like this. His mind flashes back to his past, a time when he was bullied and tormented. It's always been a law of the jungle, where the strong prey on the weak. He concludes that nothing has really changed from the old world to this one. The rules of power have just become clearer and more brutally enforced. His resolve hardens. He realizes that he, too, must adhere to that brutal rule if he wants to survive. Namwon taunts him, telling him to give up. Come on, Mr. Smarty Pants. We're running out of time. Let's just get this over with. A close-up on Dokja's eye reveals a sharp, calculating glint. He isn't beaten yet. He knows that in this situation, if he hesitates for even a second, suddenly, Dokja changes tactics. He turns to Namwon and asks a bizarre question. Is an insect egg also an organism? Namwon is taken aback, confused by the sudden change in topic. Dokja holds up a grasshopper he had caught earlier. With a grim look, he declares, the answer is yes. His mind flashes with the thought, if I hesitate, I will die. He crushes the grasshopper in his hand. A system window immediately pops up, rewarding him with 100 bonus coins for killing a living organism. This was his plan all along. A flood of notifications appears as he is rewarded coins for every single bug he had secretly collected and just killed, giving him a massive, unexpected windfall. Namwon is left speechless, completely thrown off by Dokja's strange gambit. How am I supposed to know that? He yells, lunging forward in a rage. Just then, a new system window appears for Dokja, asking if he'd like a tutorial on how to use his newly acquired coins. This is the opening he was waiting for. Wasting no time, Dokja skips the tutorial. He invests a massive 2,700 coins directly into his stamina. System windows confirm the upgrade. His stamina skyrockets from level 1 to level 10, and his physical durability is greatly enhanced. Namwon thrusts his knife forward, aiming for a fatal blow to Dokja's chest. But the attack stops dead. Instead of piercing flesh, the knife clangs against Dokja's body as if it hits solid steel, his newly enhanced durability stopping the blade cold. Namwon stares in utter disbelief, unable to push the knife any further. He looks down to see that Dokja has caught the blade with his bare hand, completely unharmed. Stumbling back in shock, Namwon can only stammer, "What? How?" Dokja calmly explains his trick. Grasshoppers lay more than 100 eggs at a time during mating season. The source of his sudden wealth was simple knowledge. With newfound power coursing through him, Dokja's eyes glow with confidence. He stares down the psychopath and declares, "I'm not the one who's going to die. You are." The clock is ticking. Less than a minute remains in the scenario. Pushed to his absolute limit and realizing he's been outplayed, Namwon lets out a strained, desperate laugh. He completely snaps, screaming curses as he throws a wild flurry of attacks at Dokja, demanding to know why he won't die. But it's useless. Namwon's desperate swings are wild and predictable. Combining predictive skill with his newly durable body, Dokja calmly withstands a final, frantic assault, weathering the storm as the last seconds tick away. For seconds, then two, the desperate struggle is finally coming to an end. The timer hits 0. A final, definitive message appears. Your time has run out. Proceeding with checkout. The horrifying screams of those who failed the scenario echo as the checkout process begins. And with that, the first trial is over. A system window announces the end of main scenario number 1 and confirms the final count. In cabin number 3807, there are 5 survivors.